Let's talk about the options available to businesses to build out their finance and accounting department. And let's remember that while the department must be cost effective, it should also be effective in the processes of the business and also add value to the business. So where do businesses mostly start? Usually, it's with the owner acting as the accountant of the business. And the startup of a business, usually the owner is not only acting as the accountant, but also acting as the head of sales and head of operations. And this makes a lot of sense for startups. It's not until the business usually hits about $500,000 that the owner thinks about building out an accounting department. When the owner thinks about building out the accounting department, they usually first hire a bookkeeper. Now, at $500,000 in revenue, they might only need the bookkeeper for 10, 20 hours a week. But as they scale up to $1 million, they're going to need a full-time bookkeeper. And what can a bookkeeper do for you? Well, a bookkeeper can bill your customers. They can input your invoices. They can cut checks. They can run payroll. At this point, an owner might decide they need a little bit more out of their department. So they will go and hire a senior accountant. Now, a senior accountant can do everything that the bookkeeper can do, but they can do a little bit more. Your reporting will be a little bit more enhanced. You can generally get monthly balance sheets and income statements. You'll usually convert from cash to accrual basis, which means your income statement will add a little bit more value. At this point, again, the owner might decide, I need a little bit more out of the department. So as you continue to grow, you'll hire a controller. Now, while the controller can also manage the department, they can add a lot of strategic value. At this point, your controller might do budgeting, forecasting, cash flow forecasting. They can handle your benefits providers. Go out there and benchmark your benefit packages and find the best options for your employees. They can handle banks. If you have any outside reporting requirements, they can handle those. They can generally handle your tax accountant. They might even be able to do some tax planning for you. This is an expensive process, however. In Denver, a bookkeeper is going to cost you $40,000 a year. The senior accountant will cost you $70,000 a year. And in the Front Range in Denver, a controller, depending on your industry, is going to cost you between $80,000 and $120,000 a year. Now this is just salary. This doesn't include benefits and payroll taxes, which can generally add about 25% on top of any of these numbers. Doesn't include the additional rent for the space that you're going to need to house them, software costs, anything else it might take to run the department. So how should you be benchmarking your department? What should you be spending? Well, according to studies out there and benchmark reports, 1 to 2% of your revenue is generally where businesses under $20 million spend on their accounting and finance department. So, for a $4 million business, what does this get you? Well, your spend should be between $40,000 and $80,000 a year. This can get you a bookkeeper. You could probably fit a senior accountant into this, and a controller's probably at the high end of that range. So what do? Well, between the owner being the accountant and building out your own department, there's a lot of middle ground here, and this is where Krieger Analytics can come in. A $4 million business, whether it be a $5 million business or a $6 million business, usually doesn't need 40 hours of any of these people's time. What I find is in businesses this size that have a controller, usually the controller's filling their time doing other things. They might be helping out in HR, they might be helping out in IT, and that's great. But usually as a business owner, you can find people at a much lower rate to do some of those tasks. So what option can Krieger Analytics help you with? Well, for a $4 million business, you might need a bookkeeper for 10 to 20 hours a week. 10 to 20 hours a week should be plenty of time to input invoices, bill your customers, get payroll done. However, you don't want just a bookkeeper. You also want a strategic part of your department. And at $4 million, you need that. Really, once you get over $1 million, you need some sort of strategic voice in your accounting and finance department to help you out. So you want your controller for 5 to 10 hours a week. This should be enough time, once everything's set up, to get your forecasting and budgeting done, to get all your reporting done, to sit down with you and talk about the strategic side of your business, analyze your financial statements. For small businesses between $500,000 and $10 million, this is the better option. And it's the cheaper option. If we go back to the start when we talked about adding value and being effective in the business processes, this is a great model. Why? Because it also scales with your business. At $4 million, this might be what you need out of your accounting and finance department. However, as you grow from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, this requirement's going to change. At $8 million, all of a sudden you might need 40 hours of a bookkeeper. And you might need 15 hours to 20 hours of a controller per week. So what can Krieger Analytics do? We can either provide the bookkeeping for you at 40 hours a week, or we can go out and help you hire that full-time bookkeeper, and yet still look over the department, run the department, train the bookkeeper, and provide these controller level services for you. This is the model that makes sense for most businesses between $500,000 of revenue a year and $10 million of revenue a year.